first, we start off with high hopes. While the market is stalling, quietly a number of mega cap stocks are going up, and away. In the past week, Starbucks, MasterCard, Procter & Gamble, Nike, and Boeing all hitting all-time highs. So, do these high-flying stocks have more room to run, or are they about to lose steam?
Good time for a game.
Perfect time. Perfect time.
Right out of the gate.
Good time for a game.
Trade it or fade it.
Let's do it.
Trade it or fade. All right, Tim, we start off with you. Pressure's on you. Starbucks just to hit a new high today. Trade it or fade it.
Trade it. I know how to play this game. I'm going to come right out and tell you. The problem here, the valuation is one that I think is fair. I think in the environment also, labor costs hurt Starbucks as much as anybody. But U.S. comps have suddenly turned a corner. Company also has been very focused on some cost cutting and actually margins in the U.S., especially they've actually been closing stores. I think the China story with China is kind of the wild card, and that's the place where actually so far they are one of the success stories. They're one of the brands that actually has not really run into whether it's been trade war sentiment or just the reality of the Chinese consumer is actually buying their Frappuccino. Stay there. Stay in Starbucks. I think
Except that there's a viable competitor in China. Lukin is a coffee shop there. They've got plenty of outlets. And if Chinese people want to boycott an American brand, they've got an alternative.
I mean, I get it. I get that the growth story for Starbucks is China, but I think you make a very good point in that we're in an environment where boycotting American products in China is not an unreasonable type of thing you need to be worried about. So for me, I'm a faded here. Not that I dislike Starbucks. I think it's okay, but I'm a faded. I still think the market's very vulnerable to lower prices, so why would I want to be buying Starbucks at the highs?
I'm with Tim here. The stock was dead money for 3 years. It broke out late last year, consolidating in the high 60s.
I think
it's a good group.
No, he said trade it.
It's a leader. I think we've got to be long here.
Oh, wow. That was scary for a minute.
Yeah.
What is Guy Adami manning the machine back home?
Nice job, Chris. Nice job. Brilliant.
You got to stay long here. 70 is temporary. I think 75 or 80 is where you're going here.
Right,
So I am a traded as well, but I do believe that you made a face.
I did.
It's not a personal attack.
Well, it felt personal.
All right, well, then it is.
Kidding.
But I do
It's
believe that
always
China
personal
is the
at
question mark. And if there's the China, the growth engine that we're looking for Starbucks, if there's hiccups along the way, if there's competition, then it could be a faded instance. Right now, it is all traded.
Oh, maybe this is a precursor of what you're about to say about Nike, Grasso. Trade or fade it.
I am a faded there. It's up basically 13% or so, 15% year to date. I'd go Under Armour. I think Nike kind of sucked see what I did there? Would you rather in a trade or fade it?
Yeah.
Totally broke the rules. I
nested
apologize for that. But I think that Nokia, I almost said Nokia there.
That's a good one, though.
Is that even traded anymore?
Take a deep breath, Steve. Come on.
All right, let's do this all over again. Nike, faded. So I just think it's running out of gas here. Under Armour has actually outperformed year to date, but I think it still can continue to outperform Nike. Faded.
So, to me, Nike's an absolute trade. This is a company that also has turned their business around. Remember, it was a year and a half ago, we were actually talking about innovation. I know in sneakers has become actually an issue if you're a Duke basketball player. But the bottom line here is this is a company that is crushing it in China. They actually are seeing North America where the basketball shoes really have caught fire again, and that was a place where people were very concerned. I like Nike. I think it's by far the class of the kind of the athletic wear. Under Armour, I mean, to me, I hear you, Steve, in terms of if you want to buy a bombed out story. But again, that's the story. I really valuation.
But you bring up China again, and I hate to rag on China here, but to me, the story in Nike, it's priced in, that China growth, right? It's vulnerable to some kind of a hiccup. We get any type of hiccup in trade. We get any type of hiccup in the Chinese economy. And Nike's going to be the one that's vulnerable because the Chinese story is Nike. In my view, we always look at what are future sales in Nike's when the earnings come out. That's what you're worried about here. I think it's vulnerable.
It was a trade war stock where it was vulnerable during the thick of the trade war.
Right.
And here on the other side, it's still vulnerable because of the Chinese growth
It's vulnerable. No, it's
like
vulnerable
both
because we
ways.
can get a hiccup in the trade war. Right now, we're pricing in, but everything's going to go great with this trade deal.
Tim, we're
right?
2 for 2
One
here.
little hiccup, you've got a problem with Nike.
You know what, Chris? Could you speak for me right now,
Tim,
please?
we are 2 for 2 here.
Thank you.
Listen, Nike, anything related to China is acting well. Look at Macau Gaming. Look at Chinese financials. Look at Yum China.
That's what worries me.
Anything related to that China trade works.
Are you saying what he's saying, or was what Tim say? He's saying that it's all priced in.
Nike was dead money for 3 years. It just broke out. This is a name. 2 weeks ago, you have a big problem with the shoe. Stock makes new highs. I think when you look at this whole group, Nike, Adidas, Puma. They're all leadership names. Footwear broadly is a good group. Nike's a good way to play.
Nike actually recovered on North America
so he's,
originally.
by the way, saying trade it, right, Chris?
Trade it.
He's new to this.
That's not,
So
he's playing it great.
He'd rather trade it.
Chris, I wouldn't change a thing, Chris.
All right, go ahead. Grasso.
I started.
Yeah.
So.
No, I thought you were going to comment.
No,
on
it was North America.
commentary.
North America was the recovery in Nike. You know, China was the last gasp, that last motion up. And I agree with BK that you have to. Something's got to be in it. So, are we in the 9th inning or are we in the 8th inning? That's the only price you get on Nike. It's got to hold these levels. 86 is the hold level.
All right, Chris here is next. MasterCard, trade it or fade it?
We're going to trade it. This entire group is good. Look at MasterCard. January 31st, huge upside move on big volume. The stock's being accumulated. Look at its peers. Visa, new high. PayPal, new high. This is a leadership group. 215 is great support on NA. You get any type of pullback, I think you want to be there. Taking a step back, look at the big picture. 23 of the last 27 months, this stock is up. We love good trends. We love momentum. We like leadership. MasterCard's still it for us.
Fade it. I mean, I hate to be the wet blanket here, but I mean, again,
the bear suit's back on, though.
Well,
That's
it is
good
for
to see.
the bear suit is back on for the time being. I think the market in general is extremely vulnerable to shocks. Vulnerable to shocks in trade, vulnerable to shocks in the economy. Look at the City Economic Index. It's at negative levels. The market hasn't priced in a weaker economy. Add to that, on top of MasterCard, we've had record consumer credit growth in this case. So how much more can it grow? I just think everything's priced in. Doesn't mean I hate MasterCard. I'm looking for a pause that refreshes.
You faded every single stock so far.
Looks like I did. Yeah, I'm 3 for 3.
Just want to get that clear.
Yep.
And you know what? And you know what I've done, Mel? I've traded every single stock so far. So why not go again and follow my brother Chris and tell you, look, MasterCard, I don't really love the valuation. Frankly, it's a difficult valuation relative to itself. If you look on a 5-year, it's trading about 20% expensive to itself. But revenue's growing over 20%. If you actually look at their top line, it's been, to me, a surprising second half story and something that I think is carrying into this year. I'm not worried about the consumer on this. In fact, if anything, it's the consumer in the last gasp of all this that's spending right now.
MasterCard, I'm going to go trade it on this one. Transaction profit margins are up 2%. This is a name that you sort of buy, and you look at the long-term chart on it. It's up and away. It does do a couple of checkbacks to technical levels, and it's most recently has done that already. So I think you're somewhat out of the woods. Trade it.
All right. Last but not least, BK, Procter & Gamble. I wonder what BK is going to say.
What do we think? You know, momentum's your friend, so you go with fade it on this one. Momentum being me. So I'm going 4 for 4 fade it, and here's why. I used to work on the old-timey trader whose whole game was all he did was buy stocks in the 80s and 90s, waiting for it to go to 100. He thought 100 was a big magnet. Guess what Procter & Gamble did? It went to 100 and pulled back. So in view of the fact that I think the market has continued to be vulnerable, at 100, I'm a seller of P&G.
You take the other side, Grasso?
Yeah, I do. I would be a buyer. I'd be a traded on this one. I think that if rates aren't going to increase the way we think rates are going to increase, the yield on it is pretty attractive. I think it's a safety bet. I think if the market rolls here, this one goes sideways or outperforms on a relative basis, I would be a traded.
I'm a fade it. 100, big round number. I think BK has it here. This has risk down to 90, and I think the big story here is discretionary is better than staples. Why do I want to own a stock at resistance in a group that's not working? It's a problem for us.
Wow. Yeah, you know what? Guess what? I'm going to fade it as well. And after a 40% move in a stock, also that to me has had a little bit of activism in it. You've had a little dynamic here where people thought they're going to spin out a couple brands. I think there's a lot of news in the price that isn't necessarily fundamental of a business that's growing a top line. Again, look what's going on in food producers. Look at the entire space. I'm telling you, it's hard to see where the top line growth is really going to come here. In fact, this is a company that largely has been traded higher because it's less bad.
But the one thing they have going for them is they're cutting costs on marketing and distribution, and they're raising prices. So maybe this could be a not less bad story. Maybe this could be a little bit good.
All right, you guys have been so good at playing this game. So good.
What do we get?
You're going to get a bonus round.
My goodness.
Boeing is the bonus stock. The stock, of course, as you know, been going parabolic. So Tim, trade it or fade it?
I have to trade this one. And to me, Boeing, first of all, the valuation is absolutely acceptable, especially on a free cash flow yield perspective, and where these guys, again, about $17.5 billion in free cash flow in 2019. I think their order book is something that's even somewhat impervious to trade wars. Certainly cyclicality. I know this is, we do this all the time, or I do. This is the non-cyclical cyclical stock because, in fact, their order book is so strong, and I don't think there's anywhere else to go. It's they or Boeing's or Airbus, excuse me. So I stay with Boeing.
Grasso?
This one, I would fade it. I mean, this is the poster child for China trade. So I think although it's been a spectacular performing stock, I think it's unwinding on an RSI relative strength index, unwinding overbought, still in the process of doing that. I would be a faded, even though I think it's a spectacular stock.
Yeah, so I'm going to fade it. And I'll tell you why.
Big surprise.
It's not because of the other ones, but in fact, this one is what you guys said. It's parabolic. I'm not a geometrist, but I'll play one on TV. The angle's too high. Yeah, that's French for the people that do the angles and
what are we doing here?
So my point is with Boeing, I agree with you actually, Tim. The visibility into their order book's fantastic. So you want to buy this when everything looks horrible. When we get a hiccup in China trade or something like that, that's when you want to buy Boeing, not today.